Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King. And today I'm going to be giving you part 2 of what if Naruto was personally trained by Kurama after leaving the village. Remember to get this one to 100 likes as usual. Share this to all of your friends on social media platform. And also guys, go ahead and check out the new episode of What If Naruto had a new partner. That changed everything on his training trip guys, and enjoy that. And stay in tune for a new episode over on Anime King 3, which I hope you guys enjoy. And yeah, remember if you're new to go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become a part of the Anime King family. And I hope you guys enjoy each and every episode. All links will be down in the description for you guys to enjoy. So yeah, without further ado, what do you say begin this new episode? Start the intro. So, the last part we left off, as Naruto has been chased, yes, all over the village, and his little legs were giving out on him. He was tired, he was exhausted, as he has gone through so much. His life has been nothing but pain so far, only given a few memories, when he spoke to the old man, but other than that, nothing else. He was young, very young, and the people of the village hated him, for what reason he didn't know. As he was mercilessly beaten, Uncle was going towards her sensei Orochimaru saw him, as she picked him up. As she ended up bringing the boy to his apartment, as she couldn't believe that the people would do this to a simple child and envoys had watched. They only break it apart once. The boy seemed like he was going to die. When Naruto woke up, it was same as usual. As he got a shower, the cold water washing off all the dry blood. Making his way, he saw Conan embedded into his wall. Someone must have broke his window and threw it in, as the place was freezing cold. Removing the Conan, Naruto placed at his throat. It would be so easy just to end everything right here, as he started to bring the Conan up to just do it. But he was stopped by a voice in his head, as Naruto was confused what the hell was going on, until he was pulled into his subconscious. That was where he met the Kyubi, as he started to speak to her, as he wanted to die, but she spoke to him. She got him to change his mind by asking him, if this village brings him so much pain, why not just leave? As she was right, he could just leave. As he thought about it, and she said that she would help him, as she shrunk down into a tiger form. As she made her way, and she became his first friend. They planned everything, as they got everything ready. And with that, on that night, Naruto decided to leave the village. He was stopped by Hinata, who saw him leaving. As she was confused, he decided to just tell her, as he had just started the academy, and he knew her a bit but not so much. He never actually spoken to her, he saw her before though. She was upset, but she couldn't find it to say anything because she was so shy. As Naruto left, as she made her way back to her room, as she felt really sad that she was unable to do anything but watch him leave. She realized that she had to get stronger. She couldn't be so fragile and afraid of everything. As she determined that she would get stronger no matter what. This little incident showed her that. But Naruto was gone, long gone from the village as he made his way. On his way, the Kyubi decided to do something to his body, as his senses were enhanced, his vision as well, to see in the dark. As she was going to begin his training, as she started to train him and help him out, to make sure he can be the best ninja he can be despite not being in a village right at the moment, as she started to teach him as well. As sometimes she forgot that he was just a 7-year-old kid, so she had to teach him a lot. As Naruto was making his way, he was stopped. Bandits. 3 bandits surrounded him. So yeah guys, so basically that's what I thought. You guys can switch across and place and check it out for yourself. So, what do you say begin this new episode? Well, looky here boys. We got ourselves a runt out on his own. The 3 bandits looked at Naruto. One of them was twitching, his hand twitching towards his blade, while the other 2 stood there calmly. The one in the middle, he seemed to be leader, stepped close. as there was a smell that Naruto could not understand what it was. But this man stink of it the worst. As he stepped towards Naruto and looked down at Naruto, seeing that his height was far beyond Naruto's reach. He lowered himself as he checked over Naruto. A small lad like you, fit and healthy. Oh yeah, you'll do great as a slave. Probably enough for us to live comfortably for at least a week. As he took another step towards Naruto, as he waved his hand to his friend who walked around to cut off Naruto's escape. Come with us and we won't mess you up too badly, okay? The buyers don't like when they are scratched up too bad. Naruto was panicking as he was unable to move at the moment, as he was afraid. Calling out wouldn't do him any good. After all, there was no one able to help him. There was no one in miles, and that would just make them angry. The largest of the three, the one that came around his back, rushed up and grabbed Naruto. He was hoisted into the air by a large grip. Perfect, that wasn't so difficult, now was it? As they started dragging Naruto down the road. And here I was thinking that you were one of those ninja brats. Guess I was wrong. The large man that was holding him let out a laugh. Naruto winced a bit as the laughter reached his ears, his sensitive ears. The last of the trio glanced towards Naruto. Hey boss, what's wrong with this kid's eyes? They're red. I ain't ever seen red eyes before. I've seen dark brown ones. Those purple ones. But I ain't never seen red eyes before. What about his pupils as well? They're slitted like a cat. That's not normal, right boss? Shut up, Tezu, the leader said as the smaller man stopped speaking. Naruto was confused, his eyes were blue. And what was that about his pupil being slits? The large man carrying Naruto adjusted his position. He was curious to see what his partner was going on about. He shifted the kid, but he saw nothing but blue eyes. Normal blue eyes. Naruto found himself in an odd position, looking directly towards the man's face that was carrying him, as the man had held on to him tightly, bracing himself against him. As Naruto felt like he was against a tree. It reminded him of his tree walking exercise, as he remembered when he first had too much chakra and the tree trunk had shattered. His body was like it's on autopilot, sending the chakra that he could muster towards his feet. They glow ominous blue before, boom, Naruto was sent sailing towards the opposite direction. He teared through a small shallow trench that marked his impact. It didn't take him long to slowly get to his feet, as he glanced over to see the bandits, as they were staring at something with shock in their faces. As Naruto looked up to see, a look of shock and horror came on his face. Naruto, being only 7, he didn't know that this would happen. When he performed the exploding chakra maneuver, he was only expecting to be pushed away from the man. He didn't know if he was going to move one way, the other thing was going to move the other way. After all, a tree was rooted in the ground. The tree bark had exploded in, but the man was not rooted to the ground. The man's body was sent sailing as he ripped right into a tree trunk. The tree trunk was slanted down, and branches were spearing forward. So at the moment, several branches were through the man's chest. As Naruto watched a river of blood leak from the man's chest to form a river below his feet. Pure blood. The entire branch was coated in blood. As the moonlight seemed to enhance everything, the leader turned towards Naruto. As he was the first to recover, he had seen his fair share of death already. I'll kill you, you little brats! Naruto turned as he rushed off into the opposite direction. Despite his small training, he still wasn't fast enough, as the man made his way hastily and grabbed onto Naruto as he spun him and threw him off balance. He quickly pulled out a knife as he twisted his hand, ready to plunge it straight into Naruto's heart. There was an evil sneer across his face, and his eyes burned with fury. He didn't care that he was about to kill a 7-year-old boy. As Naruto closed his eyes, waiting for the final blow that would take his life. But he felt nothing. He cracked the eye open. As he saw the man about to fall, he quickly stepped back as the man collapsed. 5 shurikens were buried into the man's back, but they were white, instead of the normal color, and they looked like paper. Naruto looked around, but he didn't see anyone nearby, except for the last member that rushed up to see the leader, now dead. The man had his sword drawn and he was looking around, trying to find out why the hell did that. He didn't have to wait too long though, as 5 more odd shurikens flew towards him. He wasn't a ninja, and he wasn't that, well, flexible, but he was able to deflect 2 of them, while 2 others sliced into his shoulder, drawing blood. A final one cut him on the cheek. He was panicking as he spun around looking for the next assault. This time it was direct. Paper flew out of the forest on both sides, sheets of paper, but it wasn't directed towards the man. They all formed between the space between him and Naruto, as it formed into a cloaked figure. The swordsman had seen enough as he dropped his weapon and rushed off into the opposite direction. scared for his life. The attacker wasn't satisfied with that though, as the attacker burst into paper once again. Each of them turned to tiny airplanes and sailed off at tremendous speed. As Naruto thought whoever it was just going to cut off the bandit, but the airplanes were not slowing down, as they all stabbed into his back, hundreds of them. As blood started to pour from the man's back, he was dead before his head hit the path, and the paper was already reforming into the figure. The person walked over, as Naruto was paralyzed in fear on the ground. The person was wearing a hood and he couldn't see the face. The person raised a hand. He didn't know why, but he took it, as he saw bright nail polish on each of the nails. It was a feminine hand. She lowered her hood. She was a woman in her late teens or early 20s, but her eyes showed that she had been through a lot of pain and suffering, just like Naruto own. She had blue hair that went right down her neck, and there was a small origami flower in her ear. As her eyes looked almost golden, she motioned towards the road and started to walk off. As Naruto followed behind her, he didn't know what to say, but she did save him. "Thank you," he said. "You do not have to thank me. Those men were scum, and they deserve to die. Slavery is pitiful." Her voice was deadpan. It was just an emotionless tone. "I'm Naruto," he said. He was growing more confident now, seeing that she had no ill will against him. "Conan," she said. They continued on for a while, as Naruto couldn't think of anything else to ask that would jeopardize his position, so he just kept on walking with her. She placed her hood back up as they arrived to the next village. As they walked past the guards without any problem, they walked through the streets. As she stopped, there was a building. Naruto wondered why he was following her. As she walked inside, she walked upstairs as he followed behind her. She then knocked on one of the obviously rented rooms. It opened, and Naruto saw someone. His dark red hair hung over his face, as his eyes weren't visible. His skin looked pale though, almost sickly pale. He took one glance between them, his eyes hidden. They glanced towards Naruto. "Who is a child?" he said. "Slaver," said Conan. The man stepped aside and allowed them entry. The room was plain, nothing fancy about it. Few beds and a mirror on the far wall. Conan didn't stop talking though. And this. He didn't know what she was talking about until he turned, as he saw a small red-haired girl asleep on one of the beds. The red-haired man simply shrugged, as Conan was talking to him. "Orphan." Conan nodded, as Naruto realized there was something about orphans that affect these people. "And you know this how?" As the man just looked at her, Conan seemed to understand what he was going on about. Before she asked a question, not answering that one. "Where's Yaiku?" The man didn't reply. Conan sighed, as it seems like something. Naruto was left out of the loop off. The red-haired girl started to wake up, as she sat up and rubbed her eyes. She looked at two adults. Her eyes stalked on Naruto, but she didn't say anything, as Naruto missed the conversation between Conan and this man, but he caught the end of it as they turned towards him. The man pointed his finger towards the girl. "You, boy. You will protect this girl." Naruto looked at the man, shocked. "What?" Naruto couldn't see, but he could feel the man's eyes narrowing. For some reason he couldn't see them though, the hair was blocking everything. "I do not like to repeat myself." His voice was cold and emotionless, but it had a lot of malice behind it. "Wherever you're going, you will take this girl, and you will make sure she comes to no harm. Am I understood?" Naruto nodded, as he didn't know what was this feeling. He didn't know what killer intent was, but he just wanted to stop. When he nodded, the killer intent vanished. The man then walked out of the room. The woman held out her hand, as a sheet of paper wrapped up into a flower. She touched it, and color leaked in as the flower became blood red. She motioned for the two children to come, and they did so. As Naruto looked over the redhead, she looked confused as well. Conan plucked a petal from the flower, another one. Before they could react, she pressed it on their wrist. It burned for a moment, making Naruto wince a bit, but he didn't scream out in pain, because he was used to pain. But the girl, she screamed a bit, and the petal was just gone. And now on their wrist was a small mark in the shape of a petal. Both Naruto and the girl rubbed the petal to try to get rid of the lingering pain, but by the time they looked up, Conan was gone. Naruto looked at the girl, who was still rubbing her wrist, as she looked annoyed and a bit wondering. She noticed his gaze as she turned to look at him. It was then that Naruto saw her eyes, piercing green eyes, as they were filled with the same pain of his own. Loneliness also seemed to cling to her. Her hair was a vibrant shade of red. The girl was also sizing him up as she was looking at him. as she looked quite defensive. She was used to being on her own. When she seemed done with her examination, she stepped back. "What the hell is up with your eyes?" she said. Naruto was confused as he turned towards the mirror. Much to his surprise, when he did so, it wasn't what he was expecting, as Naruto saw his eyes were now a demonic red, with the pupils transforming into slits that went from the top to the bottom. The girl kept looking at him strangely. It looked like the kid had never seen his eyes before. She was confused. The way he was staring at his own face was shock. She was confused by that. Naruto, on the other hand, wasn't amused. "Kyubi, what the hell happened to my eyes?" said Naruto. He heard a groan, like Kyubi was just waking up. "Oh, so you just noticed that? Sorry, I guess I forgot to mention it." You forgot? What is this?" said Naruto, as he was confused. "How exactly do you think I alter your sight, kid? Don't worry, you'll get used to them. Plus, I think they look good on you." As Naruto was silent. "Alright, if you really hate it that much, the first jutsu I'll teach you is transformation. Then you can cover them up," she said, as she sounded a bit disappointed. She thought that he wouldn't mind. They were just eyes after all, and it was like having his own dojutsu. But Naruto heard the hurt in her voice. "It's not that bad. I'd just rather if you told me about it sooner." He didn't hear a reply, but she snorted a bit. Through their entire conversation, Naruto forgot about the red-haired girl. "Hey, shithead! You still with me?" she said. Naruto turned, a bit startled by the name, as she had moved closer to him, as he could see her eyes on full view once again, as he could feel the loneliness and pain. It was obvious that this girl took a different option to what Naruto took. Instead of putting on a smile on her face and becoming nice, trying to win people over, she put up a defensive wall. The most obvious example from this was the language she used, and Naruto really wasn't quite used to the insults. "What did you call me?" It wasn't said angrily. Now that he somewhat knew her position now, he couldn't hold it against her. "What, you got crap in your ears? You want me to spell it out?" Naruto's smirk, her attitude, was cold and to push people away, but he knew if someone would just push right through that, well, he could help her. He didn't know why, but he felt like he wanted to help her. "Sorry, I guess it's because I didn't tell you my name." As he held out a hand. "The name is Naruto Uzumaki," he said. The girl seemed startled by that. Usually, people would be moving away from her, especially adults. Instead, he ignored her insults completely. It kind of pissed her off. She crossed her arms as she didn't shake his hand. "No, I called you shithead because you look like someone shaking their head." He laughed, and that irritated her. Who the hell was this kid, and how could he just shake her off like that? "Does that mean I can call you Angry Eyes?" She was taken aback by that. Completely. She glared at him as his smile broadened. She tried to give him her most coldest look ever, but he simply yawned to show how unaffected he was. "Who the hell are you anyway?" she said. "I told you, it's Naruto. I'm not deaf, shithead. I mean, why are you acting like this? Being so nice and all." "Why shouldn't I be?" The casual nature, the way he replied, took her by surprise once again, as she didn't know what to say. As her eye twitched, in confusion, it made Naruto break out laughing. "What the hell are you laughing at?" she said. "Your face. It's so funny. I can't help it. You just open your mouth and close it so quickly. It kind of looked like a fish," said Naruto. As she stepped forward, as she pulled back her fist, but he vanished. "You gotta be quicker than that, Angry Eyes." She spun around to punch him, but he wasn't there. Oh, that time was a bit closer, as a voice came from above, and she saw him sitting on one of the rafters in the small room. "Stop moving, shithead," she said. "Why would I do that, Angry Eyes? Then, you would just hit me." She glared at him. "That's the idea, shithead. And stop calling me that." He laughed as he jumped down right in front of her. "Well, I can't call your name. You haven't told me yet. I at least told you mine." Her glare. "Lower a bit." "Teiwaya," she said. He smiled and placed his hand out again. "Nice to meet you, Teiwaya," he said. She crossed her arms and huffed. "Well, anyway, Teiwaya, that scary dude with no eyes told me I gotta look after you. If he's anything like Conan, I'm not breaking that promise." As she looked at him, she knew that guy's name, it was Nagato. She thought that this shithead would just walk away after they were gone. But her defensive measures came up. "What the hell, I'm not going with some shithead who'd probably get me killed in a day." "Then where do you plan on going?" he asked. That question caught her off guard, as she was left with that open mouth. Facial experience she had on earlier, but this time Naruto didn't laugh. "Well, I need to get going, so if you're coming, we need to get going while it's still dark." As he placed his hand in his pocket and started to walk to the room. As she watched him leave, she definitely was going to follow him to her death. Yeah, she wasn't going to go no matter what. No matter what. But, as her mind thought about it, The way he avoided her punches, and the way that Nagato chose him to protect her. He must have some skill. Right now, with no other options and nowhere to go, he was her best choice. And there was something about him that intrigued her, but she would admit that out loud. Damn it. Wait up, shithead! She ran out of the room, as she nearly tripped up when she saw him just leaning on the wall. He was waiting for her. She glared at him, as she grumbled a few words. Well then, where the hell are we going, she asked, as Naruto smiled a bit when she said we. The hidden sand, he said. Why? She asked. She seemed to have struck a chord right there, as Naruto's mask of happiness just dropped, and she saw the real pain and suffering and loneliness behind it. It seemed almost too much for someone this young to have so much pain and regret in his eyes. But she saw it firsthand. But the mask came back into place, but the smile was small and weaker. I had to leave my home. She didn't ask anything any further. It wasn't like she didn't want to know. It kind of intrigued her, but she realized if she started to dive into his past, he might get some funny ideas and start to ask her about hers. She just nodded as the both of them made their way, as Naruto made his way with his new red-haired companion. They had about 2 hours until sun came up. After, they had been walking for a while and she complained the entire time. She didn't really have anything to actually complain about. She just didn't like the situation. As Naruto talked to the Kyubi for most of the time, having their usual lesson, well, inside his mind. Rather than going in there, he just spoke to her. As the Kyubi seemed amused and started to make joke about his new companion as well. As Naruto decided to just ignore the both of them. That was rather difficult after all. The Kyubi was inside his head, and the other one was right next to him. Eventually, it was time to start winding down for the night, and he pulled by in a clearing. He gotten better at finding them over the week, as he would locate a river or a stream and follow it, as they found a decent sized space, with about 20 feet wide. And also, there was a stream that Naruto would wash himself in. First though, he set up the usual camp supplies. Teiwa looked around. She has been surviving on her own for some time now, but never in a wilderness like this. As she saw him doing things, getting water before boiling it, she noticed that he didn't have a tent, and he just brought out 2 blankets. He seemed indifferent as he tossed her the next blanket as she caught it. Naruto knew it would be cold, but he wasn't near any village right now. He cursed himself he wasn't in town, but he, well, forgot, seeing that the strange things that happened and his new companion. Hey shithead, do you really expect me to just sleep with a blanket? He looked at her curiously, but he realized the place was really cold. Well, I don't have anything else, but we could share body heat. Her eyes opened wide. She realized he wasn't joking, he was completely serious. Are you crazy or are you just goddamn stupid? I'm not sleeping with you. Naruto raised his eyebrows for a moment, before shrugging. He offered to help, but if she didn't take it, then it wasn't his problem. He figured after a night sleeping in the cold, she'd probably take him up on his offer. But he was confused by her reaction though. What was wrong sleeping with someone, if it was just to share body heat? Kid, you have so much to learn, said the Kyubi, as she giggled a bit in his head. As Naruto sighed, all these girls around him just seemed to make his life more complicated. He pulled the rabbit he saved yesterday from his pack and placed in the water to cook. Teiwa saw the rabbit, as her mouth started to water a bit. But then she saw him stripping down. What the hell are you doing? He didn't even slow down to answer, he just spoke over his shoulder. Washing, otherwise, I have to wake up to the smell of sweat. As he stopped right at his boxers. Thankfully he seemed to be keeping it on. If you don't mind, I appreciate you doing the same. Wait, what? Are you saying that I'm stink? He laughed softly, out of amusement. No more than anyone else, my nose is sensitive, and I'm just starting to get used to it. As she didn't hear the reply because she was walking over, ready to beat the crap out of him. But he turned around so quickly. Sorry though, it probably came off the wrong way, he said. Her anger died down a bit. It was good that he at least acknowledged that he was in the wrong. Now that her mind wasn't so fuzzy with rage, she caught on to what he said. What do you mean your nose is sensitive, and your own starting to get used to it? He pointed towards his eyes. My eyes didn't used to be like this, they only recently changed. It let me see in the dark better, and sometimes I think I can see far away. But sometimes I think I'm just imagining it. As Teiwa noticed now that earlier, despite, in the dark, he seemed to know where he was going. My other senses got heightened as well, smell especially. Because it's only happened recently, I'm not used to everything smelling so strong. So I have to watch like 2 or 3 times a day. So like I said, if it's okay, I would appreciate if you do it as well. He didn't demand or forcefully ask her. It was just a request. She wasn't used to his treatment at all and it was starting to unnerve her. She grumbled something under her breath. It can't be that bad, she said. He grinned a bit as he remembered waking up to some strange smells. When he first got his senses, it can get pretty bad, he said. As he then turned towards water. as he walked a small distance to the stream as he jumped in. The cold water was refreshing and burst. As she looked at the water, it did look good, cool and refreshing, and she could probably do with a wash anyway. As she walked over, pulling off her top, she kept on telling herself this was for her. She wasn't doing it because he asked her. She made her way straight to the upstream. As she jumped in, she nearly cursed as the water was incredibly cold. After a while though, her body got used to it and she swam around, going under every often to make sure her hair got washed out as well. She was surprised how clean and clear it was, all the way in the forest. She expected to be muddy, but she could actually see the bottom. She was startled when she heard Naruto got out, as he walked over towards the food was cooking, as he pulled a towel out of his pack. But he didn't stop as Teiwei got out, as he offered to her. "What are you doing?" He shrugged, but he held out the towel. "I don't mind drip drying. Plus, if you go to sleep with here, you might catch a cold." She was startled that he could be so concerned for her, but she hid it well, as she took the towel, offering a small thanks. The fire died down a bit, so Naruto put in some more wood. The warmth was comforting to the two 7-year-olds. They ate in silence. When everything was over, Naruto offered her good night as he rolled over. After a few minutes, she could see that he fell asleep, and she tried to do the same. Unfortunately, she wasn't used to the cold night air and just a blanket, while Naruto was used to it. After all, he used to sleep in a cardboard box, and sometimes the nights get rather chilly while he was out in the village. As much as she tossed and turned, she couldn't get to sleep. She looked over to where Naruto was peacefully sleeping away, as his offer ran through her mind. No, she would not resort to that, relying on someone just to get through the night. But as the minutes started to trickle by, and morning was almost rising up, she started to get desperate. He did look warm, and right now she would give anything to get some sleep. She had tried not to show it before, but she was exhausted. She only got an hour of sleep in the hotel room. Even that didn't help her. As she slowly get up, a pissed off look on her face to what she was about to do. She narrowed her eyes and gritted her teeth as she lifted up one side of his blanket. Naruto's eyes shifted a bit as he felt a new warmth enter his temporary bed. Subconsciously, his hand reached out and wrapped around the new warmth and pulled it closer. She gasped when she felt the arm wrapped around her. She was about to turn and thump him in the face, but she heard him mumble something he was still sleeping. She will never admit it, but with his arm wrapped around her stomach, she felt protective. She felt safe. Well, not that she would ever tell him that, never in a million years. And sleep got to her rather quickly. With his arm wrapped around her in that way, yes, she ended up falling asleep. Time skip. Naruto has woken up to a lot of things before. Soaking wet in a cardboard box. He has woken up hanging upside down in a tree. He has woken up half dead in the middle of the busy street. He was even woken up in a hole once before. But out of all of them, waking up next to Teiwei as he smelled a scent of apple and cinnamon, this was the strangest. If he had anything to compare to, you remember that one time when he was in the alleyway and the dog had came over to him and nestled up next to him as well. The dog had been astray, and he took comfort at being with something as outcast as him. Waking up with someone else's body heat near to you was different for him, and he savored every moment of it. It took him a few moments to realize his arm was wrapped around her, and he didn't want to let her go, and he realized she was still sleeping. But after a few minutes, he moved away gently as it was time for his workout and his chakra exercises. As he made a mental note, he would have to catch more food since he had someone else that he had to feed as well. Time skip. Teiwei woke up as she instantly realized something was wrong. She couldn't place that first. It was dark out. That wasn't unusual, seeing that she was in the middle of the forest, with the trees covering everything ahead of them. But the thing was, she was smiling. That wasn't right, she never smiled. She jumped out of bed as she forced her face back into that scout. Yesterday events rushed back into her mind as she looked around, expecting to see Naruto right there. With an embarrassed blush, she realized he wasn't there. That means he woken up and saw her sleeping next to him, as he wasn't there at all. She glanced around. He left her, as she thought, did he leave her alone? But then she noticed the fire was still going. Well, it seemed like he added more wood, and there was food in the pot, probably for her. His pack was also still there, but that didn't answer her question where did he went off to. As if the universe heard her thoughts, she heard a grunt a distance away from the clearing. She stood up as she was about to follow the sound when she actually took notice of her state of undress. She was about to put her shirt back on, but when she looked at it, she grimaced, as the shirt was filled with dirt and mud. She hadn't realized how bad it had gotten, as she realized that his height and nose must have had trouble being around her just wearing this thing. She placed the bag on the floor. He did all this for her. She might as well just do this for him. As she noticed one of his cleaner shirts sticking out of his pack, she threw it on. He wouldn't mind. She didn't have to wear pants with it on. It acted like a skirt. Naruto wasn't really tall, but that was improving with the diet. But she was even shorter than him, and the shirt was bigger than him, so it was big on her. As she made her way to the other clearing, as she saw Naruto in the middle, doing a handstand with only 3 fingers, as he pushed himself and picked himself back up, as she realized he was counting, as he went down, 149, 150, as he flipped and landed on his feet with a triumphant smile. She was shocked. There was no way this scrawny kid did 150 handstand push-ups. She figured that he saw her watching and he was just boasting, but after that he simply went on to his next exercise, making no motion that he even saw her, as she watched him did 200 sit-ups while dangling from a tree. When he dropped down, he had the same satisfied grin, but he didn't look cocky, he was just happy. He made no move like he saw her, until he walked off. "I know you're there, TY. You might as well come out," he said. She walked out in the clearing as he turned to face her. He looked sweaty and he looked tired. "How did you know I was there?" she asked. "I can smell you," he said. "But how did you know it was me?" she said. "It is easy to tell apart different senses after a while. I knew it was you because I already smell you. You smell like cinnamon and apples." He looked at her for a moment, wearing his t-shirt that looked like a dress. "Although you did throw me off for a while by wearing my shirt." As she realized she didn't take a bath this morning, he seemed to sense her concern. "Don't worry about it. All I can smell right now is my own sweat." She nodded, as she didn't need that super scent to be able to smell the aura coming from him now. Well, at least she didn't doubt that nose of his anymore. "What are you doing out here?" Naruto frowned. He thought it was obvious. "Training." "For what?" she asked. "I'm a shinobi in training. I have to be as physical fit as I can," he said. "Why would you want to be a ninja?" she said. She didn't know that ninjas start training at such a young age. "Why wouldn't I?" said Naruto. "It's my dream to become a powerful shinobi and protect the people I care about." "What people?" "I thought you said you had to leave your home." "Who's worth protecting if you can't stay there anymore?" Naruto's smile instantly vanished, replaced by a sad look. She knew that she hit that same sore spotlight before, as she tried to change the subject. She may have not liked people, but she wasn't a sadist. She didn't enjoy seeing people suffering, which Naruto obviously was. There was just also something about him as well, that made her not want to see him get hurt. It was the same like him, like he didn't want to see people get hurt. "Why don't you tell me about being a ninja?" she said. Thankful for the distraction, Naruto slipped his smile back into place. "Well, the most important thing to a shinobi is your chakra." "What's chakra?" she said. Naruto could only grin at that, as he was already thinking, "Just call me Uzumaki-sensei," he thought to himself. TY took in everything that he told her. When she asked a question that he didn't know, he just asked Kyubi, and then he passed on the information. She didn't even seem to mind when he took these paws to talk to his tenant. She thought that he was just thinking about the answer. As Naruto was happy that they found something in common, but their main aspect was genjutsu, and he started talking about the arts. While the Kyubi was slow getting to appreciate the style, he really didn't know much to satisfy her curiosity. Instead of asking the Kyubi every time, he just simply told her that he didn't know enough about it. She seemed disappointed, as he offered to let her train with him though. He had quickly told that she wouldn't start off at his level. After all, it was hard to do 200 push-ups like that. The group packed up and they set off at a decent pace. After a 2 hour of moving, they pulled into another clearing. She caught her breath, still unused to how far and fast Shinobi could move, as Naruto set up the camp. After he was done, she was sprawled out on the ground, as Naruto smirked. He noticed she was still wearing his black t-shirt, although she put her old black pants on. That only left him with a single shirt. That means he needed to find a village to resupply. He left the clearing for a bath, and once she was strong enough to stand, she joined him. She knew there was something she should know about boys and girls, but no one ever told her the specifics. And after that fast movements, she was sweaty. After that, Naruto caught them a quick lunch. As they sit down, as Naruto started his chakra exercises, as she wondered what he was doing, as she saw he was holding on to a leaf the entire time. It was then that she saw a hole in the center of the leaf that was burning, but the fire wasn't spreading. It was just there in the center, perfectly calm. After that, Naruto started to teach and show her how to mold her chakra. He was surprised how quickly she took to it. That was all he could show in her first day, but she took quick learning to it. He himself took 3 days to get basic chakra molding down, but she did it on the first day. He smiled a wide grin when they were done. With the Kyubi guiding him and him guiding her, they would work great. Already in his mindscape, the Kyubi was adjusting her deal plan to incorporate the girl. She knew the value of having someone as powerful, or just so, to back you up. She didn't want anything to happen to Naruto, so this was like an extra help. Also, it was fun to see the both of them interact. The fact that TY couldn't get under Naruto's skin, no matter how hard she tried, was impressive to watch. TY didn't know how exhausting the work was until it was finally over. As Naruto still had his late night lesson with the Kyubi to go over, he knew that she wouldn't accept his offer to sleep together. So he handed her one of the blankets and moved a few steps away from her and lied down as well. After a while, she crept over and lifted the blanket as she crawled under with him. Because of last night, he knew that it wasn't a problem, so he turned and wrapped her armor on her waist as he put it off like he was sleeping as he mumbled some gibberish as she slowly relaxed into the position. After he feel her completely fallen asleep, he went into his subconscious. The Kyubi was already waiting for him. She was grinning a bit as she began the lesson. This was how the rest of the week went, as KOI joined him in a bit of early morning practice while he would teach her and then leave her to her own devices. And every night she accepted the blanket. Then she creeped over and slid under the blankets with him. He was still wondering why she bothered hiding it at the end of the week. After all, he woke up before her every single day, so he knew that she was sleeping with him. He chuckled in his thoughts. If he learned something over the past week, he knew that KOI wasn't a morning person. He had made the mistake of knocking her when he woke up one morning, and he received a swift punch in his stomach for his troubles. And that was one thing that he noticed as well. While she didn't have a hard physical regime like he did, it was showing in her speed and strength. As when he met her, she was rather scrawny, but now she was filling out into someone more fitting for her age with the meals and their training. He didn't even notice that the same was true for himself. Living from ramen to ramen and scrap before that, it didn't really help his body type at all, seeing that he was rather short and small for a 7-year-old. In fact, he looked like he should be in elementary school, but now because of his training and he was eating healthy food and no more instant ramen, his body started to develop even more. There was plenty of protein from the animals that he caught. His physique was rounding out quite perfectly. He didn't even notice that he'd grown a bit. But even though a lot has happened over the week, KY hasn't lowered her guard. Not even once. He tried his best to be hard, never pushing or forcing. He made sure to make she know that he was there. But she kept on trying to distance him. It was almost like she thought that he was going to just leave her one day. Something that he didn't plan on doing. He had thought about it a lot. He had to make some kind of gesture to prove that he wasn't going to leave her. But something happened that surprised him. Hey, shithead. He glanced towards her. He knew that she wanted to get some sleep, but she wouldn't admit that she wanted to, well, cuddle up with him for their body warmth. Yes, stay away, he said. She seemed uncomfortable, as she seemed to be thinking about something hard. About sleeping. What is it? Do you want both blankets tonight, he asked. I can go without them if you want. She scowled for a moment. It was still too strange to have someone so giving around her. She didn't understand why he did these things. In the week, he only got a small catch, and despite his hunger, he gave her the larger share. She acted indignant, like she looked weak, so he gave her this. But on the inside, she was beyond touch. Well, no, she said, it's not, in the mornings. I mean, you don't mind me, Damn it! Where had the damn stutter come from, she thought to herself. She hadn't stuttered like this in years. Naruto, on the other hand, simply smiled, trying to lessen the tension in the air. Of course not, he said. I offered it in the first place, remember? And I don't mind one bit. She knew that he knew, but yet he was again, being so nice. It made her kind of angry, but on the inside it felt strange. She didn't know how to express it, and her usual defense came up. Well, I don't give a crap about it anymore, she said. If I want to use you as a pillow, I'm going to use you as one, okay? She glared, daring to respond, but he did not. As she saw, he smiled didn't waver at all. In Naruto's mind, he saw a massive dam in front of him, with a small crack on it, and water started to rush out in a small stream. Well, it had started. The group made their way. As a week passed, as they came upon the village, it was at least 4 in the morning, so there was just a single guard there. As he looked at 2 young children, he led them through, with nothing more than a glance. From their state of dress, he assumed that they were either orphans or refugees. Stores are all closed this early, so they went behind a restaurant alley to just settle down and get some sleep before everything was opened up. The sound of the village and the food, it lulled them into sleep. If anyone came across the scene, they would have found it cute to find 2 young orphans huddling under a blanket for warmth. When morning came, Naruto woke up first. It was strange, waking up to the daylight, seeing that he usually sleep by morning. But he had to do it now, as the light kind of hurt his sensitive eyes. As he cracked his back and got himself ready, he knew that he had to do this. After all, he didn't want her to wake up and think that he abandoned her, so he started to gently wake her. The moment her eyes snapped open, it turned into an angry glare He had to move back as she punched where his head was. She looked around. The fact that they were surrounded by buildings surprised her. She didn't remember how they got here, as she calmed down a bit. As she stretched a bit, the sunlight was really bothering her. Before they got out of the alley though, she punched him a bit on the shoulder. As he turned towards her, "You know how I feel about you dodging me in the morning," she said. She didn't say anything else as they emerged in the small streets. Naruto was confused and so was Teiwaya. The place was empty. That was strange. As they went to the first general store, there wasn't a soul in the shop except for the small shopkeeper who looked nervous. He stood behind the counter looking quite nervous, as he looked like any moment now he'd run away. The both of them were rather uncomfortable, not understanding what was exactly going on here. As they got what they wanted, "Kid, I'd recommend that you leave this place immediately." "Yeah," said Naruto as he knew that something was wrong with this place. As time went on, the Kyubi started to gain more and more of his senses, so she could literally feel some of what he was feeling. After that, they quickly made their way as they found a clothes shop. As Teiwaya started to walk around, as Naruto reached for Gamachan, it was a bit lighter after they bought all those necessaries. It would clear him out to buy clothes for both himself and Teiwaya. Even so, he smashed to watch her walk around the store. It was obviously something she wasn't used to. As he heard a call from the vendor, Naruto turned as the man looked away instantly, and the man looked uncomfortable. Naruto frowned as he started to look through the clothing to see what was in his price range. He looked at the price tags. He was surprised. Everything was so much more cheaper here than in Konoha. In the stores back home, the ones he was allowed into, the prices are 3 times this amount. He grinned. Maybe he wouldn't be clean out after this after all. But he then saw Teiwaya coming around the corner of the aisle. As his smile dropped, she had a bundle of clothing in her arms. There was everything there, from gloves to pants, hats, shorts, shirts, everything. There was also a few items hidden down into the bundle that Naruto couldn't see, and she hoped to keep it that way. She has grown used to wearing guys' boxers in the last couple of weeks, because there wasn't else more, but for some reason she felt uncomfortable to meet Naruto see them. As Naruto wondered how she picked out so quick. "So shithead, are you just gonna stand there gawking? Or are you gonna pick out some clothes?" He shook his head as he turned around. He then reached towards a bright orange jumpsuit, but a hand grabbed his wrist. "You touch that piece of crap fabric, some waste of space. Decide to call it clothes, and I'll rip off your arm," she said. What's wrong with it?" said Naruto. She felt like she wanted to slap him. "You want to be a shinobi, right?" she said. "Yeah," said Naruto. "Then you can't just wear a color to shout, 'I'm over here, come and kill me.'" As Naruto glanced back at the jumpsuit, he didn't see what was wrong with it. The color of orange was great. But she, had some logic behind her statement. "Yeah, I suppose you're right." She was surprised that he came around so quickly, as he started to look around again. "Damn right I was right," she said. She whispered softly to herself, but Naruto heard it with his advanced hearing. As Naruto started to pick some black clothing, and dark green as well. When he was finally done, the both of them dumped their clothing on top of the counter. As the clerk went through them, the price flashed up as Naruto's eyes widened a bit. 1,600 Ryu. He then looked back at the clothing. There was a lot of them. As he looked into his wallet, Teiwaya, "I can't really afford all of this," he said. She narrowed her eyes as she looked at her pile of clothing. "Well then, put back some of your clothes," she said. Naruto's eyebrows shot up at her suggestion. "What? Why do I have to put some of mine back? I'm paying." She folded her arms across her chest as she smirked evilly. "Nagato said you had to protect me." As Naruto grumbled a bit under his breath, she always pulled that card if she saw an argument going out of her favor. But she didn't actually mean what she said, she just wanted to see him squirm a bit. Well, protect didn't mean cure her the last time I checked. How the hell would you know, shithead? When was the last time you read a goddamn dictionary? Naruto was about to retort, but the store clerk cut in for him. "That's absolutely fine. Everything is half price today," the man said in a desperate tone. It was almost like a silent request for them to just pay and get out quickly. Naruto was about to ask about it, but Teiwaya sent him a warning glare. He was the type to question these things, but she never looked a gift horse in the mouth, or at least she wouldn't, after she made sure it wouldn't try to kill her. After packing up everything, they walked out of the store. Naruto was happy that Gamachan had been completely emptied, but he was still curious about the people at Tudin's village. Teiwaya was happy for her new clothes. It had been a long time since she had new clothes. Seeing no other reason to stay here, they started to make their way towards the exit. As they didn't see the two men deep down the alleyway that watched both of them, as they watched the two kids with keen interest. The first man was wearing a vest, as you could see large, unstrained muscles bursting from his arms. The other one was a smaller man, who looked quicker on his feet. The larger man had unruly hair that went down past his shoulders, while the shorter man, hair was shaved completely down to his scalp. So, These are the kids that Conan got interested in. The larger man says he looked down towards the smaller man for his reply. It would appear so. They match the description, at least. The bigger man grinned. I wonder what she saw in them. The thin man says he watched them start to leave the village. Who the hell cares? We are given a job by our boss. Let's just grab them. Patience, Keitaro. We must be discreet about this. Drawing attention where the information may get back to our real target would be troublesome. Keitaro frowned. Mishodo was always like this, ruining his fun. He sighed, but he nodded, knowing better than to anger his companion. He found that out the hard way when they were first introduced. Don't worry, Keitaro. You have your fun in time. For now, we will just observe. These children may serve to surprise us yet. Mishodo knew never to underestimate an opponent, no matter how young or small they might be. Having met various of young shinobis in hidden villages, it showed that greatly. While these children didn't really look like ninja, it never really hurt to be cautious. After all, the cautious always stay alive. Time skip. They left the village a few hours ago. As Teiwai was walking beside Naruto when he suddenly grabbed her wrist, as he pulled her to the ground. She was about to ask what the hell when suddenly something impacted into a tree. She looked across at Naruto with awe. He just saved her life, as she didn't even know that was coming. But Naruto was already standing up, glancing towards the tree limb. Suddenly, a slow clap could be heard. A thin man with a shaved head emerged from the tree line. The man smiled as his muscle companion came out, with a massive sword over his shoulder. Those are some reflexes, kid. I'm impressed. Naruto's eyes started to flicker between the natural blue and the counter red. However, reflexes aren't going to save your life. Just come with us quietly, and we won't hurt you. Well, too much, the man said. Naruto stood his ground. The man simply sighed. You know, I wonder, has that ever worked before? Well, there wouldn't be any fun in it, I guess. His wicked smile returned, and emotion. Keitaro then dashed forward, taking mighty steps. Naruto faltered slightly. The man was coming at him like a charging bull, but he didn't move one bit, as he raised his hand to block, take away from Keitaro. But Keitaro moved off at an impressive show of speed and slammed right into Naruto. With the man hulking frame, the force slammed Naruto into a tree as his body shook. Keitaro grinned as Naruto's body slid out of the crater he created in the bark. As Teiwai was terrified, as she saw Naruto groan in pain, she was about to move but she was grabbed. The man tugged her under his arm like a sack of vegetables, pinning her arm so she couldn't move or do anything. As he walked back over to his companion, that was kind of boring. I thought the kid would put up some fight. The smaller man simply shrugged. I'm surprised you expected anything, Keitaro. He was just a small brat after all. As Naruto picked himself up, although I may have spoken too soon, as Naruto's eyes were now firmly red. Keitaro then glanced towards his partner. No, Keitaro, you have the girl. Head to the meeting point and I'll catch up. I think it's best if I beat out the sense into our young friend over here. The brutish man looked a bit disappointed, but he nodded and walked out of the clearing with Teiwai under his arm. As Mishodo turned and looked towards Naruto, as he glanced and made his way over to him. You got guts, kid, but all that means is that there will be more to spread when I'm done with you. As he pulled out a kunai, Naruto slipped into his basic taijutsu stance that he was taught at the academy and the Kyubi had fixed. Mishodo simply grinned. The man was rather arrogant. I had a feel that you might prove to be trouble. Guess I was right. You must be a shinobi trainee, and from where we are, it looks like you're from the Hidden Leaf Village. As Naruto didn't move, as the Kyubi taught him about psychological warfare, never rising to the enemy taunts. Mishodo, seeing that his words weren't having an effect, he simply shrugged. As he shrugged, two kunais dropped into his hand. As he tossed them, Naruto dived. But while in mid-dive, the man threw two more, as one of them stabbed into his thigh, and one of them stabbed into his shoulder. As Naruto cried out, the man threw another kunai that pinned Naruto straight to the tree. Before Naruto could move, Mishodo came over and slammed his fist right into Naruto's stomach. As he smashed his fist right in Naruto's face, as Naruto felt his mind swimming. He needed to escape. He needed to help Teiwai. He couldn't let the other man hurt her. He then remembered something. When the fox told him that he couldn't use her chakra, as Naruto had found it, well, curious that she was inside of him, and wondered if he could use her power, but she told him that your chakra would merge because of the seal, but at the moment it was, well, dangerous for him to use. But she told him that he has to wait until his late teens for it to merge. But she told him if he uses her chakra for a short period of time, he can get used to it. But she told him that he will have to wait for a few years, seeing that she had no idea what her chakra would do to his coils at this age. Naruto was still happy by that. At least that could help him. The kunai that was pinned Naruto to the tree ripped his shirt as he fell down. The man stood over him with a smile on his face, seeing his opponent, young and weak as he was, beaten on the floor. As he loved to crush our opponent when they are at their weakest, as he kicked Naruto in the stomach. Is this all you got, Leaf Shinobi? Honestly, I expected more. Kyubi, I need some of your chakra, say Naruto. Kid, I already told you it would be dangerous. I don't know what is gonna happen. I don't have any other choice. Please, I need to save Teiwaya, said Naruto. There was a moment of silence. This is not going to end well, but you're right. It seems there's no other choice. There was another pause, and then Naruto felt it. A painful, excruciating feeling. It felt like lava burned through his very coils, ripping through his body. Mashodo was confused as he saw red haze coming around the boy. He went in for another kick, only to have his ankle being grabbed. As Naruto slowly lifted up his head, as the man looked at the hand that was grabbing his ankle, the boy's nails had turned to claws. As Naruto started to apply pressure, the man felt his leg being squashed by this small kid. What the hell? As Naruto's claws ripped into his leg, the man cried out and leaped away. As Naruto slowly picked himself up, the cloak around him now visible fully. As he snapped his head, the man saw fangs. Large fangs in the boy's mouth, not to mention blood-red eyes that were looking into his very soul. And he felt terrified. But guys, to be in episode right here, for the next part, this is to do. Like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notifications to stay posted. But for now, see you guys soon. Peace.